So welcome to this podcast. This is episode 54. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mr. and Mississauga.
Hello there.
And we also have Jaime Olympus Jr. on the line. In Seattle, Washington, sorry.
How's it going? That's why I didn't say anything, so I was waiting for that.
No, I'm waiting. I'm going, yeah, I haven't finished yet. Okay, gotcha. And actually, it's not Mr. and Mississauga. It's Mississauga, Ontario. But I just, for those of you transporting at home, scratching your heads looking at Mr. Saga or Mr. and Mississauga. Alrighty, so we'll dive in with some fact check. This is from last week's show, episode 53, I guess. That would be make sense, right? So, Doctor Who. I talked about Doctor Who. The Five Doctors was the name of the episode. It was on PBS 23rd of November 1983, which is the 20th anniversary of the original broadcast of the show. It actually, small little factoid, no, that's not the right use of the word factoid, but small bit of information is that it actually broadcast a couple of days later in Britain, so it was on PBS on the exact 20th anniversary. It starred Peter Davidson, Patrick Thornton, John Pertwee. Tom Baker was in the show, but they reused old footage because he didn't think he wanted to have more screen time, or he didn't feel that it was worth his time. And Richard Hundle played the first Doctor, so it was the first five Doctors in the episode in the show. But it was an actor playing the first Doctor because William Hartnell had died 10 years earlier than that was shown. And another small little bit of information for those of you who don't know, that Peter Davidson is actually David Tennant's father-in-law. And we talked about that in the past, where when they go out to dinner, it's really weird because people are confused because there's two doctors at the table. Anyway, so we were also talking. The next piece of fact check had to do with the movie Spaceballs, and the quote is, "I am your father's mother's nephew's cousin's former roommate." Yeah, and there's a clip here showing a more extended clip showing the time when they kind of meet up, and Dark Helmet meets up with the hero of the show. And he says, "Well, what does that make us?" He goes, "Absolutely nothing." Yeah. And then my favorite scene from that show is "Now is now." They want to find out what could possibly happen, and so the second in command says to Dark Helmet, "Well, we'll just get the VHS and load it up and see what happens in the movie." And then that's when they get confused about "Now is now." Yep, now we were talking about the Romulan companions that live at Chateau Picard. I had originally pronounced it correctly in the show, but then we started calling it Zahan, but it's actually Zaban is the name of the male character, the male Romulan from Northern Romulan. It turns out we learned in this episode, along with Lars. And there was a newbie mentioned. I mentioned a newbie that they meet on the ship, the Romulan cube. Or, sorry, not the Romulan. Yeah, the Romulan cube. Let's call it that. They're reclaiming the cube. But it was Dr. Nathana. I can't say this word. I'll have a link in the show notes. But she's actually a Trill from the Trill Polytechnic. So I think I didn't notice that she was a Trill at first, but in subsequent watchings, I have noticed. So I assume since she was, they made fuss over her, she'll probably turn out to be an important character in an episode or two. Not this episode, but coming up, I would think.
And sorry, was that the character that Soji was like helping get all set up? Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know she was Trill either.
Yeah. So I think I looked at it again. She's got the markings that
Jadzia
had. Yeah. So obviously the Doctor is not the woman on the screen. The Doctor is the Trill, right? If you don't know what a Trill is, then sorry.
Go watch some DS9.
Yeah, watch some DS9. Yeah. And I mentioned last week it was the original Doctor Who set. Clearly, it's not the original Doctor Who set. It was a Doctor Who set that was there was a TV show called Adventures in Time and Space, which is about the origins of Doctor Who, and William Hartnell being cast as the original Doctor. And so, to make that show, they had built a brand new Doctor Who set. It's been reused a few times by the Doctor Who since that show ever came out. So you might want to look that one up, Jaime, if you're curious about the origins of Doctor Who, the very, very original stuff, right?
Yeah, when you guys mentioned, I was like, I'll take your word for it. This Jodie Foster Foster is Jodie Whittaker. Jodie Whittaker is my...
Jodie Foster, she'll be the next Doctor.
The next Doctor. Jodie Whittaker is my first Doctors, and so a lot of these Easter egg details I wouldn't pick up on, and I totally believe you guys when we were talking about it. And I think it's going to be very similar for folks who are jumping onto Picard without being super familiar with a lot of the TNG and etc. Era. So it definitely gives me some empathy for folks who are a little confused by some of the nitty-gritty details.
Yeah, and just a little scoop for our listeners. Tim and I make up 1 out of every 5 facts just to mess up with Jaime. So we just throw random Doctor Who facts in to see if he's paying attention or if he's,
Actually, we don't do that.
No doctor has ever eaten, strawberries.
Doctor Who's renowned for
50 years of the show. But I believe it must be like a Gallifrey Time Lord thing. I'm sure. Timey-wimey.
Yeah, timey-wimey.
Yeah, timey-wimey. Well, it's interesting, though, when you think about it, not to alienate people of my generation, and who might be listening to the show, all 3 of you, that I think David Tennant is probably most people's first Doctor, right? I mean, Eccleston was kind of grumpy, and I don't know if his character really was winning the new audience, but David Tennant definitely made the Doctor his own, and then Matt Smith obviously after that. So so most people who are in your age groups, which are 35 to 40, kind of look at like the new next gen. It's almost Doctor Who the next generation, what it really is, right? Because there was a long gap where it was the dark period of the late 80s and early 90s, and then it just went away for a number of years.
Yep.
So, I mentioned Altered Carbon Season 2, and you asked me when it premieres. It premieres on February 27th, which is 20 days from today.
And I saw that the star is actually going to be Anthony Mackie from Avengers.
Oh, it's not going to be... No, really? For those who haven't seen the show, the premise is that you can basically jump from body to body. Right. You just basically your brain exists on like a disc, and you just lop it into a new body, and so that's why Joel Kinnaman plays the character whose original body was Asian, so he has an Asian name, and then now in this new season, I guess, he's into a body of an African American. Oh, really? Huh. Well, the original character, is Asian, right? I think you mentioned that, right?
Yeah. Takashi Kovacs, I think, is the guy's name.
Yeah. Okay. So you have one more fact check for us, John?
Yeah. We were talking about the Incredibles. We were trying to figure out what his name was off the top of our heads and couldn't pull it. It was Syndrome. Syndrome was the character played by Jason Lee in the original Incredibles. Yeah.
Cool. Jason Lee of Mallrats fame.
That's right.
Okay, well, let's dig into the headlines. So I think, Jaime, you're up first.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know if it's follow-up, because I don't think I actually ever mentioned it on the show, but it's certainly my own personal follow-up, because I had seen the original tech article. So what I'm talking about is the fact that very soon an animatronic Spider-Man will swing over Disneyland. And the way it works is really cool. If you check out this article, it's linked in the show notes. I had seen the original animatronic testing where they have this robot that sort of looks like a person, but it can bend and change its limb output or arrangement while it's in midair, which seems like a really hard thing to develop and program. And they show one video of it swinging, like you kind of imagine Spider-Man swinging on one of his webs, and then it lets go and contorts itself in various ways before getting caught by a net. And then they show this video that's like, all right, what would this look like if it's Spider-Man outfit? I'm like, wow, that'll be really cool seeing that over some tower or some other similar thing where, oh look, there's Spider-Man jumping from one area to another in midair.
You think they'll do it without wires, like because he lets go? I mean, are they going to have like a robot that lets go of things and catches onto?
Yeah, so that's the cool thing. It's not just, oh look, it's just a mannequin swinging back and forth. This is I assume they set it up behind the scenes. It swings, it lets go. I'm assuming they will angle it so you can't see the net on the other side where it gets after it's contorted itself, done Spider-Man-y poses, and then lands in the net. And they probably have, several of those, I would guess, so that or a couple, so they can get the next one getting ready to go before they've finished taking one out and dragging it back to the starting line.
I'm waiting for the day when the guy wire breaks and it lands on somebody.
Yeah. Do you guys remember the Spider-Man musical they did on Broadway a few years ago, where there was reports of accidents over and over again. People kept falling from the rafters.
Yeah.
This immediately when I saw Jaime's note, I was like, okay, this is going to go well.
Didn't they cancel the Spider-Man Broadway thing?
They did, yes. Yeah. I think after the third broken femur, I think they canceled it.
Nice.
Spider-Man turn off or turn out the dark, something similar.
Yeah, turn off the dark, I think it was. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, John.
So this was an interesting one this week. So footage popped up earlier this week on a few different sites showing what purported to be test footage from the long-rumored, never-seen Star Wars television series that George Lucas was working on for a few years. Apparently, I remember following along at the time. There was word that they had written 100 scripts and that they were going to do this huge thing. He was going to self-finance this whole project, and he was going to have it basically make it and then market it to whoever was the most, the highest bidder. But we never saw it. They ended up basically starting it, and then it just sort of faded into obscurity. And after that, this was all pre-Disney sale. And yeah, it sort of never saw the light of day. So we saw this first bit of footage, which is this clip that's on a few different sites. It's linked in our show notes. Walks through the first test footage for 5 minutes of what the show could have been like, to show that it's rooted in the sort of gritty, grimy part of the lower levels of Coruscant, where there's a mix of stormtroopers and scum, and there's a sort of hint at something rebellion-ish going on. And then the next 5 minutes of the clip are them actually in the green screen studio, so you actually see what they were filming. And then before, so it's before the VFX were added in. And it's kind of interesting to sort of get this
really
look
good.
It's not perfect, but it's not bad. And so the working title was Star Wars Underworld. So for those of you who may be aware of that one, that's what it's called. What did you guys make of this footage? It's kind of weird that it sort of popped up all of a sudden.
Yeah, I stumbled across it on Twitter earlier before you posted this, or maybe at the same time. But I watched it, and it was like, wow. I'm like, okay, show me more. And there is no more, right? So
yeah.
It was interesting to see the making of part 2.
Yeah.
I think for folks who end up checking it out after you finish this very podcast, bear in mind that this is not now, right? So it's very clearly not fair to compare it to The Mandalorian. I have not seen that show, but having seen just some of the screenshots and the cinematography, it's clearly not that. The art has evolved over the years, but if you remember what stuff was early 2000s, what did you say, 2005? It seems pretty good and pretty reasonable for a TV show that would have been not give us $7 a month, thank you very much, but brought to you by Coca-Cola and Huggies and traditional over-the-air broadcasts, right? HBO at best, and you weren't paying specifically for that show as an add-on; it was just included, right? It's pretty good. I'm impressed.
It does make you think what could have been. I mean, this, like you say, Jaime, this could have been TNG or Voyager or any other syndicated science fiction show. 7 seasons, back to back. You feel like we kind of missed out.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, obviously in the days of Disney Plus and Apple TV and Netflix, I mean, something like that could probably have a better chance of getting out there. But yeah, maybe they couldn't get any takers or anybody interested. It was probably done as a pilot-y kind of idea, right? So
yeah, all right. Yeah, again, this was clearly test footage. I guess they were floating it and it never came to be. But bit of a shame. Yeah. Next thing up, we've got word from a few different sources. So take this one with a large grain of salt. But a few different places are saying that Mad Max 5 is allegedly going to start filming this fall. So this would be a follow-up to Mad Max Fury Road. Alleged title is Mad Max Wasteland. And this is George Miller. This is Tom Hardy. This is, again, if this proves to be true, this is pretty exciting because that was an amazing movie.
Yeah, it looks good.
The question I think on everyone's mind is, it took them I can't remember, 16 months or something crazy to film that last movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were in the deserts for a long time filming that movie.
People aged,
yeah.
Babies were born.
Apparently was not quite well received by some of the cast and crew because they were out there for a month at a time.
Wow.
But again, they starts filming in the fall, so we'll see it sometime around 2023.
Cool.
Also got news this week. So there is a rumor going around that Sam Raimi, he of famously, of course, Evil Dead 2, and he directed, of course, the original Spider-Man trilogy in the early 2000s. There's rumor that he's in talks to direct Doctor Strange 2. Scott Derrickson had been originally given the job as the director, and he apparently left the project a couple of weeks ago. And so they weren't sure who was going to step in to do that. And now, the rumor is that Sam Raimi might be the guy. Now, this is a guy, obviously, a big horror background and a pretty darn good filmmaker. I don't know. Could be good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, apparently.
I'm kind of curious how this ends up rolling, because he was sort of a director from a different era of Marvel movies, and I kind of wonder now that he's got a little bit of a different sort of house style to build off of. I wonder how but yet they're not all the same, right? Clearly things like Thor Ragnarok are different, and Doctor Strange feels different than Iron Man, and yet it fits. Makes me wonder what he can bring to the table, having had the experience of doing stuff like that, but also now having sort of a broader framework to play with instead of having to sort of make it up whole cloth.
Yeah, it'd be interesting too, because I know I was fortunate enough to have the chance to interview Sam once around Spider-Man 3, and I could tell that he was a little frustrated at the fact that he had to kind of shoehorn a lot of ideas into that third movie, which I think was widely regarded as not the best of the original trilogy. I wonder if, he gets a longer runway with the Marvel movies where he doesn't have to do that, where there isn't like the, urgency to get it all out at once, where, they are taking the long road. I wonder if that'll be good for him. Some nice, speaking of Disney, Marvel, and all things that make money. Disney Plus, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced this week the first wave, or the next wave, I guess, the first wave of Marvel shows for the Disney Plus app, and when they're arriving. We knew that we were getting all these shows, but now we've got some actual dates. So The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is set to debut in August. Season 2 of The Mandalorian is going to be in October, and WandaVision is coming in December. So 3 really good sounding shows all coming in 2020. That's pretty exciting. Did you guys get a chance to catch the trailer for the Disney Plus content? I think it was on the Super Bowl.
I didn't, but
yeah, I did, and I think I linked it later in the show notes. I'm not sure if it's the same thing you saw, but I did see what was broadcast during the Super Bowl.
So, Jonathan, I watched a bit. I sort of watched it just for the commercials, but I don't know. Did you watch the game live or PVR it?
No, I didn't.
Because last year they actually showed the American commercials, like all of them, right? Yeah. This year, because Jaime and Mark were making comments about it's Matt Pack and all that kind of stuff on the it's wicked smart. But they were talking about it on our Slack channel, and I'm looking at them going, what the hell? Has Mark got an aneurysm or something? And then and so I'm looking around, and I happened to stumble across an article on Facebook where Time was sort of like recapping the commercials as they went by, and then I saw it before it was actually broadcast on Canadian television. So some commercials they let through, and some they blocked. But they traditionally used to do that all the time. If you wanted to watch the Super Bowl commercials in Canada, you always got whatever the Canadian broadcaster decided you would get to see, right? So, but I was talking to Carol about it before the show came on, and before the Super Bowl. Apparently, there's a TiVo setting you can get for your TiVo in the States that will only show the commercials. So it'll fast forward through the actual game. So that's
nice.
Cool. Depends on what your priorities are, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
The other couple bits of Disney Plus news, and Jaime, I know you flagged in here that they also teased the Loki series, which isn't coming till next year, but also nice to get a little taste of what's in there as well. They announced that Owen Wilson is going to be joining the cast of Loki. So that's Lightning McQueen. For those who are,
that's why your headline says Lightning McQueen.
Lightning McQueen is joining the Loki cast. Well, he's Disney alumni. So,
by the way, I got to let you know, I don't know if you've ever looked at the show notes, but I actually use your headlines instead of the actual headlines because they're usually better.
Yeah, I usually try and have a little fun with them, so it works out that way. We also got news this week that Ron Howard teased that he's working on that Willow series, which we talked about for Disney Plus. We knew that there were sort of rumblings he had mentioned in the past that he'd love to work on it, and Warwick Davis had mentioned that as well. But he said that this is something that they're actively working on, so that's pretty cool news too.
Well, I don't know if you guys use the IMDb app, but I do, and Kevin Smith does a lot of hosting at Sundance, and so he interviewed Ron Howard about that as well at Sundance. A bunch of other movies too. Now that I think about it, I probably should have added them for the notes here, but oh well, maybe next time, next week. Carry on. Oh, I have a question too about Disney Plus. So, what is going to happen with the movies that we're seeing that have come out this summer, for instance, that are owned or going to be picked up by either Disney Plus or Netflix or whatever? I mean, I have this Cineplex app here that reminds me that Jojo Rabbit is now available, and what else is available? Something else came out today. When are these do we know when these are going to come on to the streaming channels? Like, is Disney going to show their own content on the channel, or are they going to wait? They can make people pay for it first, and then milk it for all it's worth, and then show it later? Or do we know?
I think things are still following the usual path, right? They go from the movie theater to the hotels and airlines to the pay-per-view services at home to the pay channels / apps.
Right.
I mean, that was the story about the deal between Disney and Netflix was that Netflix was not going to have any of the big blockbusters anymore. They weren't going to get Captain Marvel. They weren't going to get Avengers Endgame. So that, the story was that they were going to start getting less and less of that good content as their deal with Disney winds down and Disney Plus starts to expand itself. And so those products, those two movies plus a bunch of other ones, Toy Story 4 just came out on Disney Plus. I guess it depends on what the content is, because I mean, Disney obviously, I think they want to control their own content, so that would be the Star Wars, Pixar, Disney Studios, Marvel stuff. When it comes to studio releases like Jojo Rabbit, I don't know, because I don't know who is the maker of that movie off the top of my head. But now that we're getting this fragmentation of where things are ending up, it could end up exclusively at HBO Max. It could end up exclusively at CBS, Viacom. It could end up at like any number of places depending on sort of what the deals are. So,
by the way, the movies that came out today were Knives Out, Jojo Rabbit, and Parasite, which are 3 movies I want to see for sure. Joker's
I've been wanting to see. I wanted to see Jojo Rabbit and Knives Out for sure, and Parasite after you recommended it for sure.
Yeah. And Joker's out as well already.
And Ford versus Ferrari is out now too.
Is it?
It's also nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, that one was amazing in IMAX. I hate to say.
Yeah.
All right. But your son was working, so he couldn't go.
Yep.
All right, Jaime, over to you. Or did we just stole his thunder?
Well, there's a few more there.
Yeah. The link I have is, I believe it's the same exact trailer. Right? When I saw the Super Bowl that shows us the first looks at Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, and WandaVision. So we get to see a little bit of the Falcon basically taking over that, well, I guess the Captain America character, but at the very least taking the shield part, right, that he was gifted from Cap. And we see the Winter Soldier looking very Winter Soldiery with guns and bullets and stuff. We do see Loki in kind of a very, no pun intended, low key sort of just a quick statement, a quip. And the thing that caught my eye the most was the WandaVision with Wanda and the Vision that seems to have been like several different decades worth of sitcoms is the style that they chose there. It's like a black and white Leave It to Beaver. There's the
Wait, so what is WandaVision?
I forget the premise. Jonathan, do you remember the premise?
They've been a little coy about it. There's speculation that it might be tied to Doctor Strange and the was it Madness, Descent into Madness, or whatever it was called there. But they haven't really given many details. It looks like, exactly what Jaime was mentioning. It looks like it's sort of tied into a I don't know if it's meant to be a dream sequence or what it is, or if she's trapped in some sort of hallucination or whatever it is. But it's really interesting to see all those little iterations, and including one of the little clips that they flash by for a couple of seconds is her in her very comic book costume with the red headdress and the red long sleeve long gloves and everything. That was really, like, for a longtime comic fan like me, that was a real, like, treat.
Yeah, I couldn't tell, given the different eras of sitcoms where they had, like, Leave It to Beaver. It looked like they had the Brady Bunch. I'm pretty sure I also saw Married with Children, so different decades. Given the nature of the character, it's hard to tell if it was like a multiverse sort of thing, or if it was leaning towards the reality-bending powers that she has in the comic books. Don't know. But look like intriguing stuff. I mean, it certainly looks like reasons to spend your monies on Disney Plus.
So is that what it's going to finally get you over the top, buddy?
The Mandalorian was going to do it, but that was going to be like, binge it all in the free period if they have one, or binge it all in 1 month. Given what you said about the release dates for season 2 and where these are coming out, I don't know. I'll figure out a slot, maybe post Picard, depending on what the CBS All Access schedule turns out to be.
Right, cool. Next
one, speaking of Disney, is that Hulu is apparently targeting 2021 for international rollout. It still shocks me to hear that Hulu is a USA only thing. I could just kind of assume that everybody had it. Why wouldn't you, right? I mean, why keep it to one country? But yeah,
when it first came out, we used to be able to see snippets, like previews and stuff like that. But yeah, you'd have to be in the States to watch entire shows. But so, I don't know. Alec Baldwin comes to mind. I can't remember why, but for when it first came out. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, just has it grown up? Is it like a Netflixy kind of thing now? And what does it look like?
I can't really speak to it because I, funny enough, have not actually subscribed to Hulu. Although longtime listeners to this show would know that my plan is, since the Orville is moving over from Fox to Hulu, I'm definitely going to subscribe, but I don't feel about the Orville the same way I do about Disco or Picard. I probably will wait till all those episodes are done, similar to The Mandalorian. Subscribe at once to binge in 1 month, and probably also catch up on whatever number of seasons there are of The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, right. Now, it's funny, and here in Canada, we don't get Hulu, but because of the way that our system of syndicating shows from the United States goes, Hulu can syndicate its shows to cable channels up here. So shows like Handmaid's Tale, shows like Marvel's Runaways, we got Future Man. We got, what else have we got? Mindy Project. They finished the Mindy Project. Veronica Mars. They did a whole bunch of shows that have come up here. Castle Rock's another one. That even though you can't get Hulu here, if you have Crave or if you have some of the other services, like even channels like Showcase and CTV Sci-Fi carry some of those shows. So I wonder if it does expand internationally, if we're going to start to see some of those syndication deals dry up.
Cool. All right. And how's Disney Plus doing there, Jaime?
Pretty good, apparently, because it's come out that they have over 28 million. That would be 28.6 million Disney Plus subscribers in the first 3 months since it launched, which exceeds the 20 million estimate analysts were thinking by the end of 2020. This is pretty huge. I mean, that's kudos. That is a very difficult thing to imagine, that you could launch with that much enthusiasm. It's not easy. And as pointed out later in the article, there's critics who are like, oh no, if you don't have kids, there's very slim stuff on Disney Plus. I'm like, okay, but I basically paid for one show, CBS All Access Star Trek Discovery Season 1. Yeah. You can't talk to me about, there's not much to watch except all this wonderful Disney content that you grew up with as a child. Like, you go watch that and give them a little breathing room to start creating more and more. We literally just spent like 5 to 10 minutes talking about all the cool shows either renewed or coming out new on Disney Plus. Just slow your roll. Not everything, even Netflix streaming wasn't Netflix streaming when it first started, right? It had a bunch of crappy stuff and then it built up more, and now it has tons of original stuff. So give it time.
And there is actually a pretty strong catalog catalog off the hop. Again, it's the only place you can get the 4K editions of all the Star Wars movies. Granted, they're the special editions, but here we are. Obviously exclusive content. There's not a ton off the hop, although again, it depends what you're into. There is The Mandalorian. This week, they just debuted a new original short film based on, it comes after Toy Story 4. So again, depends what you're into. Personally, I'm in my 40s. I don't care. I'm still going to watch the Toy Story stuff. I'm still going to watch whatever Pixar stuff that I haven't seen in the theater. I'm still going to watch the Disney Studios stuff. There's still a pretty deep bench of stuff. Plus they've got Simpsons, plus they've got Clone Wars and Rebels and like all the Marvel cartoons. Like it's a pretty staggering amount of content to launch with. And the idea that they're just going to keep churning out originals on top of that is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, so I had never seen Black Hole, so I watched Black Hole when it first came out, and I just started watching. I'm 3/4 of the way through the live action Aladdin. I had a couple of family members who were big time into Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, and so those kind of shows are interesting. And that's the reason, I guess the genesis for my question was that if I'm able to see Aladdin already on Disney Plus, when are we going to see other movies like that? Like they're just coming from the theater practically to this streaming service, right? Which for all intents and purposes,
they put the Lion King up there now too. The live action
Lion King. That's true. That's up there too. But somehow I don't really care about that one.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
Anyway, carry on. Yeah, I think we talked about YouTube Music on the other show. They're already up at 60 million subscribers, but up from 50, I think, a few months ago, right? So they're doing pretty good, right? Or was it 20? I can't remember. It was a big number. 20 from 15, I think, right? There's not. I mean, surprisingly, given that Apple TV's got the brand name and the hardware platform, and Netflix is the old boy on the block, right? These other guys are catching up. So not that Disney isn't a huge major thing, right?
Yep.
All right, next up.
Speaking of catching up, if you had not caught up with Lost, which ended many years ago, apparently all 121 episodes of that series will be streaming for free on the, I can't believe it even exists, and I totally forgot that it did, IMDb TV streaming service.
What?
And I say that I didn't know because it doesn't even make sense, because Amazon already has its own, Prime Video service. You would think this would just be part of that, but it's not. It's its own thing.
There's also bits of, you can subscribe to MGM now through Amazon, I think, until Disney or Netflix buy it, right?
As a channels add-on,
like
an
the way
add-on,
you can subscribe to
channel, CBS All Access and HBO, or do you mean like they own it, like the way that IMDb?
I think we talked about last week that there's a sort of tug of war happening with MGM properties. It was one of our stories last week, but I've seen and sort of a side ad for hooking up MGM to my Amazon TV subscription, which I have no desire to do whatsoever. But it's there.
Yeah, they talk about the other shows that are on here, and it's definitely stuff that's of an era. Ally McBeal, Desperate Housewives, Malcolm in the Middle, My So-Called Life, Ugly Betty. Like, there's definitely a lot there. Like, is it too soon to call it nostalgia? Is it retro?
Yeah, it's funny. I saw like maybe the first 4 or 5 episodes of Lost, and then I lost interest. And then, but I've seen all the stars of Lost in other things now, so I'm kind of tempted to go back and catch up with that. But then I also got to catch up with all the Star Wars stuff and Star Trek stuff, and too much TV.
It's on the long list, right?
Too much TV. I need to get like an illness where I'm stuck in bed for like 6 months. Catch up. Yeah.
We wish that for you too, buddy.
Thank you very much. Is that the last story here? Or we got one more. Doesn't have a headline. Viacom.
Oh, that was the Viacom app one. Jaime, do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
Yeah, you can go ahead. I can do color commentary on that one.
Okay. This one will particularly be of interest to Jaime, who does subscribe to the CBS All Access app. There's a story this week on CNBC that in light of this mega merger between Viacom and CBS that has basically brought all of the Star Trek content together, as well as a lot of content there with Paramount Pictures and all of CBS's catalog, that apparently they're thinking about merging that into an all-new app, in spite of the fact that they already have CBS All Access. CNBC reports that this is still being discussed, but apparently they want to combine all of CBS All Access with all of Viacom's free and live services through Pluto TV, as well as Paramount Pictures, Comedy Central, MTV, BET, and Nickelodeon, and then offer it as they do now with ad-supported and ad-free tiers. That's a huge amount of content upgrade over what is currently on those on CBS All Access. So it's pretty cool. It seems like more and more we're seeing these sort of like mega packages, right? Where you sort of get a bunch of stuff all in one. I think we saw that with Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN Plus. And now we're getting a look at this that could be, you know, again, just sort of merging a bunch of very well-liked properties into one mega app. What say you, Jaime?
I think it could work, especially if they do different tiers where if you want just CBS All Access, which is largely Star Trek stuff, the Twilight Zone, there's a Lucy Liu vehicle called Why Women Kill that I noticed it's on there. And then said, cool, if you're willing to pay more, and more than just the ad-supported version, which is $10 a month, you're willing to go up to $15. It's like, cool, now you've got, you know, Paramount stuff, you've got Comedy Central, which has a lot of good content, MTV, BET, and Nickelodeon. If they do it the way that Disney did with The Simpsons, if you had every Nickelodeon show available, that'd be pretty sweet too. Like, I would definitely like being able to see new content come out and also binge all of Ren and Stimpy, or if I'm feeling slow and depressed, to watch Doug. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff there that could be done.
A little SpongeBob. You could marathon SpongeBob for about 3 straight weeks without stopping.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we are at the main part of the show, where once a week we take a look at Star Trek Picard. This week we're looking at Season 1, Episode 3, The End is the Beginning. And this week it's Jonathan's turn to do the play-by-play, and we'll do the color commentary.
The peanut gallery in the background here. All right, so this episode opens up, like last week's episode, it opens up in a flashback. It opens up at Starfleet headquarters 14 years prior to current Picard time. Picard and Raffi Musiker are talking about the planned evacuation of Romulus, and Picard has clearly just come out of this meeting with the top brass at Starfleet, and he is saying that doesn't look like the evacuation is going to happen. They've just banned all the synths in wake of the big attack on Utopia Planitia on Mars, and they think that there's a fatal error in their code, so they're no longer allowed at all, and that's going to be a huge problem for them in trying to get the evacuation done. Raffi immediately thinks that the Tal Shiar are behind the synthezoid attack on Mars, and Picard reveals that he basically put it on the table. Either they agree to his terms of trying to get the evacuation done, or he's going to resign, and they accept his resignation. So this is where we see what we've known about for a few episodes, but the resolution of actually seeing the moment after he comes out of there kind of shell-shocked and has just been told, well, we don't need you in Starfleet anymore. So that's pretty interesting little flashback. We then cut to Vasquez Rocks, which, just as an aside, I thought that was a really nice touch too. She lives, Raffi, whose home sort of looks a little motorhome-ish, out in the high desert in California. Vasquez Rocks is where they shot a bunch of the classic Trek episodes. That's where Kirk bought the Gorn and all that stuff too. Right, so again, nice little touch there. So Picard has shown up there and he says, hey, I'm sorry for, bailing on you, but I need your help. Raffi is clearly quite pissed at him for abandoning her in the wake of her. It seems like she got kicked out of Starfleet. We don't really have confirmation of that.
But she says, lost her security clearance, she said. And
yeah, she doesn't say she got fired, although she says in the flashback that she's going to lose her job. But then afterwards, she says she lost her security clearance. I don't know if that means she was basically kicked out of Starfleet or what.
Yeah.
But yeah, she basically, points out the fact that, she's been living through pretty hard times. She's living away in the desert. He's been up in his chateau, still hiding away, and they haven't talked for years. She's smoking snake leaf. Anybody have an insight on what snake leaf is?
No, but I'm sure it's addictive because, a little bit of sort of inside baseball. They on the episode of The Ready Room this week, Will Wheaton interviewed her, and her character, all the characters are flawed. I mean, that's sort of the setup here in this particular version of Star Trek, but she apparently is dealing with addiction and other things in future episodes. So
yeah, well, they cut to her later in later scenes in this episode where she is working in her home, and there's bottles everywhere. So clearly she's got some substance issues that she's dealing with. And she was also very excited when Picard showed up with his wine from his vineyard too.
So just a sidebar here for a minute, and we talked about this a bit before the show, but Raffi, for those of you who know our sort of iOS community and have followed More Than Just Code with Jaime and myself, we couldn't help but look at Raffi's character and see a lot of our friend Tammy Coron in there, like including the little, the military style hat and the sort of standoffish attitude. And what do you think, Jaime?
She's armed. You have the
yes,
the taste for a little bit of drinkery like that. Yeah, it was Space Tammy is I think how I put it in the
Space Tammy,
the pre-show discussion. I was like, oh my god, I really hope Tim feels the same way. That's not just me thinking that.
So from there we cut to the artifact, which is of course the big giant Borg cube that is being reclaimed by the Romulans. There we see for the first time in Picard, we see Hugh, of course, famously the Borg who was rescued and disconnected from the Borg collective back in the Next Generation episodes. And so Hugh witnesses the scene that we saw last week where Soji is helping to take some of the technology off of a Romulan who is been transformed into a Borg, assimilated, and he decides he's going to do her a solid and take her down. She's apparently been asking for a chance to interview this Romulan survivor of the Borg assimilation named Ramda, who is the foremost expert on ancient Romulan myth.
Can we talk about Hugh for a second?
Yeah.
Okay, so the leader guy, the director of whatever Romulan recovery, Borg recovery, the main guy, clearly a Borg, as you mentioned, he's got implants and stuff like that. Is he supposed to be Hugh?
Yeah, that's Hugh.
The same Hugh from TNG?
Yep.
Oh, really? Is it the same actor?
Yep.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yep. He's got his complexion back, and it's a little hard to...
Right. Well, I didn't recognize the pattern of obviously, I guess if you'd seen the show, you'd recognize the implants, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Well, and the left side of his face looks like it's been surgically reconstructed. He's got a new, he's got the Geordie LaForge eyeballs. So yeah, it looks like he's sort of a new version of himself. So you can be mistaken, and also he's 20 years older, but you can be mistaken for not recognizing him. But yeah, it's clearly meant to be Hugh.
Neat. Cool.
Yeah. From there, so we presume at that point that Hugh is wandering Soji downstairs. Meanwhile, we cut back to Raffi and Picard, who Raffi is basically railing against Picard and saying, she had concrete evidence that a high-ranking Starfleet official conspired to allow the attack to go forward to put an end to the rescue mission for the Romulans. So, pretty interesting development there. And Picard says, well, knowing that stuff, that's why I need you to come with me. That's why I need your help on this mission. I need you because you see things that other people don't. She refuses and says, basically, get off my property. But as he's wandering off, she says, actually, I did find you the pilot you're looking for. His name is Rios. He'll be in touch. So there's our first sort of connection to the Rios. We cut to a quick scene where Commodore O, who is the head of Starfleet security, we met last episode, shows up at... what's the name of that? Daystrom. That's it. Sorry.
In Japan.
Japan, yes. And starts asking Dr. Girardi about her interactions with Picard. So that's, and we'll circle back to this one, but the sunglasses. Did you guys notice the sunglasses?
Well, before the sunglasses, there's something else I noticed too. First of all, we thought she was Romulan, but she's actually Vulcan.
Yeah.
And did she not have Yoda ears, or was it just me?
In last episode?
This episode.
She has pointed ears.
No, but if you look at them, they flare out like Yoda. Yoda's ears do, not like Spock's where they're up against his head.
Yeah,
So what is it about the sunglasses that caught you?
My immediate mind went to Rieman's.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting. For the distaste of the light.
The distaste for the light. Yeah. Now, it could have just been sunny in Okinawa, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
there are a couple of hints too. We'll come back to the Riemanns in a bit, but hopefully. But yeah, I mean, we know from Discovery that there's technology to change, and even there's I think an episode of the original series where somebody dresses up like an Andromedan and has a microphone in his antennae, right?
Right.
So it's not like, and of course we've had Kirk dressed as Romulans, and we've had Riker dressed as I don't think Riker with the forehead was dressed as a Romulan. He was in another race where he had to go and assimilate them, right? Like a First Contact kind of thing.
Yeah, they took Worf's ridges off at one point too, right? They made him look like a human for. Remember the episode where he goes down with his brother, where he's like he has to go look like a human because his brother's on the planet. It was Paul Sorvino played his brother.
Oh wow! Huh.
There you go. He pulled that right out of the memory banks.
Mm-hmm. All right, carry on. Sorry.
All right.
So the Riemann connection. Cool. All right.
Yeah, something to think about. Anyway, we can debate that one afterwards. So we cut back to the Borg cube, and Hugh is taking Soji into a holding area, and we meet inside there a bunch of Romulans who have been de-assimilated. So that's an interesting development too. I can't remember, is it at that point or is it later on where they mentioned that was the only batch of Romulans that have ever been assimilated?
What do you mean?
Well, they mentioned at one point in this episode that that's the only time that that they know of that Romulans were assimilated by the Borg. Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Because all of a sudden she does that Jason Bourne thing. You're talking about when she's interviewing the.
Oh, that's later on when she's talking to Ramda. So yeah, this episode just sort of sets it up where basically they go down. You get to see that there's this room full of Romulans who have been previously assimilated. Yeah. They've been repatriated, but they've all looked like they've got some pretty serious mental health issues going on. Also, I thought it was interesting to note that there was an abundance of Romulans of color, which I don't know. Have we ever seen Romulans of color before?
I don't know. We've seen Vulcans of color.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going. I don't think Romulans, they all seem to look more or less the same and pasty, the heavy sort of brow ridges.
Yeah, but there was actually the security guys when they go down to the holding center, and then inside some of the survivors are clearly black. And it was kind of an interesting, just sort of struck me in that moment. I was trying to flash back to my several hundred hours worth of Star Trek watching, thinking, have we ever seen non-Caucasian Romulans before? Anyways, so we cut back to Earth. Raffi is doing exactly what Picard thought she would do. She's digging into the information that he shared with her that there are Romulan agents working on Earth, and she gets interrupted by a digital call from Picard, who basically says, you're looking into this, aren't you? And she says, no. And he says, I'll send you all the details I have on Maddox. She said, I don't want them. He's like, it's too late. And he sends it to her, which is a very, very funny little scene. Because again, clearly it shows that they know each other quite well. And there we get the next scene where Picard beams up to meet Rios. He beams up to Rios's ship. And there he's greeted by a very gregarious person who turns out to be the emergency medical hologram. And he leads him to Rios, who is sitting on his captain's chair, smoking a cigar with a large piece of tritanium stuck in his shoulder. When Picard asks him what happened, he just says, well, I didn't die. So the emergency hologram is busy working away, trying to pull this piece of metal out of his shoulder, and Picard and Rios are sizing each other up. Interesting little manhood measuring contest between the two of them, where Picard sort of looks around and says, I can tell just by looking around this place, you are Starfleet to the core. I can smell it on you. And Rios basically says, don't try and read my mind. You can hire me if you want to, but don't try and get inside my head. So again, interesting. We sort of get a little sense of the dynamic that might happen between the two of them. We cut back to Earth. Raffi is going through the data that was shared with her, trying to find clues, and she spots something interesting in this code. I don't know, for what it's worth, it says crypto algorithm identification, Gorn egg, type quantum fingerprinting, origin free cloud. We'll find out what free cloud is in a few other scenes, but we cut back to Rios's ship, and he is sitting there, and is it supposed to be the same hologram? He says says it's the ENH, not the EMH.
No, it's EMH.
I think there's two, because I'd have to go back and listen and pay really close attention to closed captioning. I think the very first one might have been the EMH.
Yep.
The British sounding one, and then who does medical work, and then the one that sounds like a jovial Irish accent would be the ENH, the navigational.
Navigational, yeah, that's what I thought he said.
Oh, really? Because
it went fast though, so we'd have to check the tape as it is.
I did check it with the things on there, and it does say EMH and ENH, but they don't necessarily say it. But he does say at the end of the scene, Rios says, "You already fixed my navigational problem, now bugger off," which makes me say it's navigational.
Yeah, no, but he says to him, I'm here because of a medical reason. And on the ready room, the question was, what does EMH stand for?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. So
that's weird because his accent changed from the first appearance to the second appearance.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because we have seen singular programs change, like the EMH Doctor from Voyager had the ECH, the Emergency Command hologram, where his uniform even turned red. So he could switch into command mode. I don't remember which episode this is, but I have to look it up. And it wouldn't be unreasonable, given that, I could make my Amazon Echo or Google Home sound like Samuel L. Jackson if I wanted to. And it could be Dolly Parton. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you, for giggles? It's not something we've ever seen before. And it was so short, it was hard for me to tell. This is like one of those weird production errors where, so-and-so started with a British accent and then they changed their mind in the shooting and they never went back and reshot. We'll have to see in future episodes if these truly are intentionally different accents. Do they represent different characters? Are they different modes?
I think you guys are way too deep onto the accent thing. and I think it's the same character in both cases, because I didn't get that it's a different guy in either case.
But he sounded so posh when he greets Picard, and then he sounded like Lucky Charms for the longer conversation. That's what stuck out to me.
Okay. I'm posting a screenshot for you guys, by the way, on the Slack.
So following that scene, he's in this room. Rios is bickering with his hologram, and he's talking about, the hologram is trying to convince him to work with Picard, saying he's a good man and, he's going to do good things and you want to be part of this. And Rios says, I already have one grand heroic captain in my life. The last thing I need is another one. And then says, it was 10 years ago. I can still picture his brains and blood splattered all over the bulkhead, which is pretty grim. So clearly there's a lot of baggage on Rios, which I think that's what one of the defining characteristics of this show is, obviously, and you mentioned it, Tim, is that all these characters are going to have some pretty big flaws, and Picard included, which is going to give them some interesting depth to work with. So we cut from there to Picard on the vineyard, and he's talking with Laris, and he's sort of saying goodbye, saying, I'm going to miss this stuff. And she says, no, you're not. You're not going to miss this stuff. He said, well, I'm going to miss you, and I'm going to miss Zaban, and I'm going to miss number one, my dog. But I'm, and she says, you never really belonged here.
Yeah, he says he never really felt at home here.
Yeah. And then we get an interesting, I really like this, the way they did this sort of two scenes flipping back and forth between what's happening with Soji and Hugh on the cube and what's happening at Chateau Picard. They sort of keep cutting back and forth these two scenes. So I'll sort of run through it the way they cut it, but it's all sort of one big scene, but played in two different locales. So Soji goes in and meets Ramda on the Borg cube, and Ramda is playing what looks like a game like Tarot, but it's called Pikmit, and it clearly has symbology on it. And then we cut back to Picard at the chateau, and all hell breaks loose because the same group of Romulans, the masked, black-wearing Romulans that had shown up to kill Daj, show up at Chateau Picard, and they attack Picard, Jabin, and Laris. Yeah, there's a lot of pew-pew in there, and so they... It's a pretty good scene, actually. You sort of get an appreciation for the fact that Zaban and Laris are not, like we've seen them as sort of these domestic, people who work at Chateau Picard and are his assistants and stuff, but they're pretty badass. They disarm and kill a few of those ones. And then at the end of the scene, of course, one of them bursts through the door, and it's the one they didn't account for, and then that person gets felled by a blast, and it turns out that Dr. Girardi had picked up a disruptor and shot them, followed by the very funny line, line, "Maybe I just stunned him," and Laris points out disruptors don't have stun settings. So she's a little shaken by that one. Jurati tells Picard that she had a visit from Commodore O, and that she, shared all the fact that, what she was doing. They strap one of the surviving Romulan prisoners to a chair, take off his helmet, again confirming that he's a Northern Romulan, and he is, very, very suspicious of what it is that they're doing. So this is all interlaced with them cutting back and forth between the other scene where Ramda is starting to sort of gain a little lucidity. She's trying to articulate as she's playing this card game. She starts connecting with Soji. She says, "I know you. I remember you from tomorrow." And we find out, this sort of data download where Soji says, "Ramda, you were on the last ship assimilated by the cube, and, we're not sure what happened there, but the submatrix collapsed." And as she's pressing Ramda for this information, Ramda's starting to get worked up. She's starting to cry. And then she says, she puts down a card that shows two characters on it and says, "Are you the one who dies or the one who lives?"
Yeah, which sister are you? Yeah.
Which sister are you? And then she says, "I know you. You are Webb Sheneb. You are the destroyer." And she tries to kill herself. And
but we cut back to the scene where they're interrogating the guy, and he says, "She's the destroyer."
She's the destroyer. Yeah. And then he does kill himself.
He spits that's evil spit or whatever.
And he almost gets Zaban, who has to quickly take off his jacket as it disintegrates. And then we cut back to see Ramda, who grabs a disruptor off one of the guards and tries to kill herself. But Soji, with her unknown to her abilities, dashes across the room and pulls the disruptor out of her hand and stops her. Betraying the fact that she's got some pretty good skills there. So Soji's pretty shaken up by all this. She goes to her quarters and she dials up her mom, and she says, "Is Daj okay?" And her mom says, "Oh yeah, Daj is fine. She's thinking about buying a dog." And so something is clearly amiss there, because we know that Daj is not okay, and we know that Daj has already contacted her mom in a previous episode and said, "I'm scared. Things are going wrong. Things are going bad." So
here's my theory on that part right there, is that the mother's message is actually coding. Yeah. Because she basically puts her out, right?
Yeah. So as she says that, Soji, while she's talking to her mom, basically passes out in the bed mid-call. Mm-hmm. And when she wakes up, she doesn't say anything about it. She doesn't make any reference to it. She's not like, "Oh shit, I hung up. Darn. Oh darn, I woke up and, forgot that I fell asleep during a conversation with my mom." So Narek, the ne'er-do-well, scheming, pretty looking male Romulan shows up and is sort of trying to throw her off the scent, saying, don't worry your head about that. I'm in love with you, and don't you worry about it.
Well, she says to him when she sees him that, how did I know about the ship, and how did I know that this is the last Romulan?
Mm-hmm. She says she doesn't know how she knew all that classified information.
Right. Yeah. And nobody else knows how she knows it either, right? So.
Yep. We cut to the next scene where we see Lieutenant Rizzo from the previous episode, who we now know is also Narek's sister. She shows up and she's looking very much more distinctly Romulan. She has her ears back and she has a little sort of nasty mustache twirling scene with Narek, where she sort of says, you better figure this out. If you think you can get through to her with this, seduction thing versus my, chaining her to a wall, then you better get on with it. So obviously there's going to be a little bit of a push from now on what's happening there. We cut back to Earth.
As she walks down the hallway, did you not notice her shoulders?
No.
She was wearing a Riemann outfit.
Ooh,
with the raised raised shoulders.
Did not notice that. Did you notice that, Jaime?
I did not, because in my notes I wrote down Holy Lannister Batman. There was a lot of weird incestuous sexual tension between Narek and Rizzo. So I got totally distracted.
They were talking awfully close for brother and sister.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, I smell her." I'm like, oh, "Smell? I don't think I'd ever say that to a sibling."
Yeah,
even if
she says something about a carnal smell, and like, maybe don't tell your siblings you can smell carnal things about them. So we cut back to Earth, and Girardi is, coming down off of the fact that she just killed someone, and she basically says to Picard, I told Commodore O everything except for one thing, and that's that I'm coming with you. If you're going to go out there and you're going to find Soji, I want to be there. I have to do this. I'm the planet's foremost expert on synthetic life. I have to be there to meet this synthetic person. So we get the two of them beaming up to Rios's ship, and when they get there, they find Raffi is sitting there at the controls next to Rios. She says that she's found Maddox, that he's on Free Cloud, and that she's planning on coming along, but she's not there for him. She's just going to go find Maddox because she has some business. And of course, we finish the episode with something I think everyone's been waiting for. Engage!
And the ship zooms off in the same direction as the Next Generation Enterprise.
I should have mentioned earlier on, there was that, it was brief, but we did get the Star Trek The Motion Picture sexy shot of the new ship. They pan over the side, pan around the front.
And the TNG theme song, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's well done.
Yep. So they don't give us the name of the ship yet, though. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, they haven't said it on the show. I think people online have been saying La Sirena.
What is?
I don't know. I got to see what that means. I want to say it was like Serenity, but I don't know. Let me see.
That would be funny.
I posted a picture on the Slack. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. I couldn't take a screenshot off my phone because they don't let you take screenshots of movies. But
this is much more straightforward. Sorry. While I looked that up, the Siren.
The Siren. Okay.
Which I'm gonna assume. I'll have to find out. I'm gonna assume they mean like the mythological kind and not the police kind.
Right. Yes. If you look at the picture on Slack, there, folks, it's a picture of Commodore O.
Right, with her Men in Black Ray-Bans.
With Men in Black Ray-Bans, but I also noticed the very Yoda-like,
Yeah, her ears definitely project a little further, don't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was an incredibly weird thing to have a character in sunglasses, and immediately
especially a Vulcan.
Why would a character be wearing sunglasses? And that was the first place my mind went, was back to Star Trek Nemesis, where, of course, the Remans, they're perpetually in shadow, so they don't like bright light. And that one really sort of jumped out at me as maybe there's a whole Reman thing. And now that you've mentioned the thing going on with Lieutenant Rizzo too.
Yeah, and she was in the dark too, right? Because technically.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's a little subplot that is going to start playing itself out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, because last time we'd said, so was this like a Romulan, or is this who's knowingly in Starfleet? Are they a Romulan who's pretending to be Vulcan? Are they actually Vulcan? And we only got part of that answered so far, where the claim, at least, is that Starfleet believes she's Vulcan, which is still kind of TBD as to whether that's true, and see what else is going on.
Well, it's kind of rare to have a Vulcan villain, though, isn't it? Like in Star Trek lore, like aren't they always sort of a logical, and I mean, other than
it's going to say Star Trek 6,
huh?
Star Trek 6.
Yeah, it was part of the villainy there. The logic extremists in Discovery.
Right. Okay.
Arguably, to some degree, the Maquis in DS9
and Voyager.
Yep.
Yeah, because Tim Russ was a Maquis, wasn't he? Or he was working.
No, he was faking.
He was undercover.
That one. I was thinking of the one that Quark talks to in the holding cell, talking about the price of peace is at an all-time low. Now is the time to get peace. There's some other discussion. So if you go down the path of if she is really a Vulcan, why is she wearing the sunglasses? And this is a little bit out of my expertise in terms of remembering the Vulcans in the inner eyelid and how that works. There's a couple of things that I've seen online that people say, well, Spock in, I think, a TOS episode or something, were like, oh no, he's blind, but no, actually Vulcans, have some sort of inner eyelid thing that protected his eyes from something that blasted him in the face.
Oh, is this the one where he's not supposed to look at the guy who's in the box?
Something like
the
that.
Maria Muldaur episode episode where she was the blind woman who she was his companion because she was blind. If you looked upon this type of race, and Spock, the guy, the alien, takes over Spock's body and talks and laughs and smiles and talks to them all, and then he has to go back in, but he forgets to put the visor on. So when he leaves Spock's body, Spock is looking into the box, and when he becomes Spock again.
So there's that one that was sort of vaguely in my mind, and it sounds like you remember it better than I do. Mm-hmm. And the other one that people have brought up is from Enterprise, where T'Pol, I think it's called The Forge is the episode. They said that Archer and T'Pol are on some desert planet, and it comes up there again as well. And I'm unsure. So what's unclear to me is, do they have like eyelids that act like they are sunglasses or some sort of UV filter, or are they more of an emergency thing, the way that your eyes will close up automatically if something is, endangering your eye, or what? Like, how does it work? Because I'm really unclear on how to address the claims around the Vulcan inner eyelid, because I just don't remember how it works in the mythology.
Don't know.
The other thing I'll point out with Commodore O that really blew my mind is people said, "Oh, you know who that is? That's Tamlin Tomita." I'm like, "Who the heck is that?" It's like, she was the love interest in Karate Kid Part 2.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Which also takes place in Okinawa.
There you go.
I was like, what?
Like, that's the actual actress, you mean?
Yeah, and I looked it up on IMDb. I'm like, sure enough, she played Kumiko.
Yeah.
And if you look at her IMDb photo, you'd be like, oh, I kind of think they did the best they could with the Yoda ears you were talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I think the actress is they have to pin her ears back if they wanted to.
Because she's already got ears that stick out, you mean? Or
I mean, at least the picture that we show here, I can kind of imagine if you added a prosthetic to it, how it would lay on the side of the head.
Why am I not seeing the episodes here? So 3. Oh, they haven't updated the IMDb page yet. Oh, no, she's in the end of the beginning. Here we go. Just trying to see the cast list here. What's her name again? Oh, Sumi. No, that's Soji's mother.
The character's name is Commodore O.
Tamlin
Tomita. Yeah.
Interesting.
Good catch, buddy.
Yeah, that was just sort of random when people said, "Oh, guess who that is?" I'm like, "What? There's no way." What else did I put on my notes here? I put the get 2 friends to join Free Cloud and you get more storage space. I thought that was an entertaining name. I'd be very curious to see what that ends up being like in the future episodes.
Well, in this episode, we see the scene where when Raffi sees Free Cloud, it looks like it's rolling dice. So it looks like it's like a gambling site or something like that. Like, it really does look like some sort of fly-by-night casino or something.
Yeah, she kind of dismisses it as soon as she sees it, right? Which I thought was interesting, right? Yeah.
Well, it only took 3 episodes. We're finally heading into space.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, as soon as he did the engage thing and was ready to go, now I'm ready to start watching the show. Okay, let's go, right?
Yeah.
And now we have to wait a whole week. Suddenly it became bingeable.
Yeah. No, it's true.
It's interesting to me for these first 3 episodes where they do sort of feel like if you just put them together back to back, they would be more or less a premiere, like an hour and a half, 2-hour premiere of a typical show. And it does make me wonder, given that the name is The End is the Beginning, if that's pretty appropriate. Like, you look at what ended up happening, they set up the premise, and by the end of the 3rd episode, if it was part of that same premiere, they basically set up, and now we go do the adventure.
Right. By the way, I wanted to talk one thing about the Romulans on the ship, or on the cube, because did you not catch the thing where she says, "Are all the Romulans in the..." And it was sort of like the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest wing of the cube. All of the Romulans are a little loopy after being assimilated.
Yeah, clearly there's some serious damage done by being assimilated.
But it sounds like it worked both ways. It sounds like it also...
well, as they say, it disconnected the cube, right?
Yeah, so something about their minds messed up the whole thing.
Well, and that's what she's trying to get to when she's talking with Ramda, right? Yeah. She says that let's see, add the line in here. Submatrix. She said the submatrix collapsed, and then she's talking about this whole idea of the shared mythology that may have basically been so ubiquitous in Romulan culture that it basically crashed the Borg.
Right.
So the Romulans are essentially a computer virus. Right.
Well, and I like the fact that, and she also likes the fact that they don't call their mythology, they call it news.
The news.
The news. Yeah.
Yep. No, this was good. This is, again, I think the table setting, we talked about sort of the pacing off the top of the first episode and the fact that, they're not just like, pew, pew, pew. They are really sort of taking their time. They're introducing the characters. They're fleshing it out.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it took them 3 full episodes to get to, okay, we've got a spaceship, let's go.
Yeah.
It's a nice slow burn. It's not like just, nonstop straight action kind of show.
Right. Jonathan Del Arco is Hugh.
Yeah.
Just looking through some of his pictures here to see if there's...
And I think this episode was directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Really?
Number one.
That's not interesting.
So we're going to dive into Doctor Who. Do you want to do Doctor Who this week?
Sure, we could. My first comment about Doctor Who this week was another one of the Save the Planet episodes, right?
Yeah, that's where my views on this one went. Where like, did they just discover that there's a problem with the environment in England? Like, this is the second episode this season where they're like pummeling you with premise of environmental holocausts and damage to the environment, and it was not a great episode. And they did the same thing that they often do in Doctor Who, where they compartmentalize. We went from last week's episode, which was a real like, whoa, big things happened. We got introduced to a new doctor, and what's the mystery? And there was not one reference to it. It may as well have just not have happened. And that's not the first time Doctor Who's done that. They're very well known for their sort of compartmentalized episodes and stuff. But after what was a sort of mid-season ta-da kind of moment last week, boy, this was kind of...
I think it's the second last episode of the season.
This one?
Yeah.
No, I think there's a two-part finale to the season.
Is there? Okay.
So, because I read that online. So I don't know if next week is the start of the 2-part finale or not. I must admit, I don't know where we're at in the season on it. But,
it's season 12. Let's see. Oh, no, you're right. There's 10 episodes. There's 10 episodes coming. So this was 6, Praxis.
Yeah. So we still got 4 episodes to go. But apparently the last 2 episodes are robot man centric, and they are going to be sort of tied together. So I don't know what that means for episodes 7 and 8, if we're going to get any more sort of plot development towards this sort of big, who is the new doctor? How do they not know each other? All that kind of stuff. Or if that's going to sort of carry over. But yeah, this just sort of felt like a bit of a backslide. Like, it was not a particularly compelling episode. And the fact that it didn't pick up last week's sort of big mystery reveal kind of felt like a missed opportunity. Jaime, as our newbie Whovian, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm a little confused, and granted, I'm still getting used to what Doctor Who is like tonally, but there are weird things where it definitely feels more like broadcast TV, right? Where, episodes are largely self-contained, and maybe occasionally there'll be some story arc, right? Like they had what was that villain dude? Tom Shaw, I think, was the villain last season.
Yeah, the alien in the first episode, and he shows up later on.
Yeah, he shows up like once or twice more, right?
Yep.
They haven't had a lot of that, and I did think that the other Doctor was going to be the sort of setup for that, and so it's hard for me to understand how it's supposed to fit together, and the tone of things is a little sort of weird, where this person exploded into dust, and this normal human who's not a companion, just a normal person, is like, oh, well, that's mildly inconvenient, isn't it? I feel like people should be screaming and run away and be scared. Yeah. Like it's a little hard for me to figure out.
Yeah, the whole missing astronaut thing, and he shows up in a different place, and that was odd. But it's interesting. It's kind of the fun thing about Doctor Who is how the Doctor will just show up on a scene and be caught up immediately. Like doesn't have to be filled in on the things. And
it feels like they were chasing a different angle on the same adventure and just happened to intersect with what was happening.
Yeah, and does your cat talk, Jonathan?
Does my cat talk?
Yeah, this was the episode where she says, "And there's a talking cat in Ontario." Did you miss that?
Yeah, I don't think that's my cat. My cat would not be smart enough to learn a language.
Well, she's talking about all the strange things that are happening around the world, because they're like, "Hey, doctor, did you see what just happened?" He goes, "Yeah. There's this happening and that happening, and there's a talking cat in Ontario, and there's another thing happening." And yeah,
I missed that line. That's funny.
Yeah.
No, my cat is not smart enough to learn how to talk. He's purely decorative.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's it was I mean, some Doctor Who Who episodes are just not memorable, and I'm having a hard time remembering this one. I'm looking at they're in Madagascar, so I guess there was one character, of course, who was like not really who she says she was, and they go into this other. Is it another dimension, or they go inside the Earth? I forget what they do. They go inside the Earth,
they're under the ocean. They're under the ocean,
yeah.
Right? They're under the garbage patch in the ocean, and again, it is especially in wake of we've had 6 episodes to get to like 6 episodes and have like episode 3 and episode 6 both be like, by the way, the world's in tough shape. Like, we know. Thanks for catching us up.
Yeah. Did I talk to you guys about Miracle Workers yet?
Miracle Workers?
No, I don't think we have. Certainly not the Dark Ages season. We might have mentioned it last year.
Oh, so you know about this show called The Miracle Workers? Was it on last year?
Yeah, last year. So this is the one with Daniel Radcliffe and Steve Buscemi. Yeah. Last year was about Steve Buscemi as God and Daniel Radcliffe, and I forget who the other.
Did you watch any of it?
I did.
Yeah. So I just caught the last 4 episodes. I guess they were rebroadcasting them or whatever. Because I think Dark Ages comes out in a couple of weeks or something like that, right? But my favorite part was when they're talking, where he's trying to go to his parents to get more. Of course, God has parents, right? So he's going to his parents to get some more funding for his next project, was going to be some weird restaurant called Lazy Susan, right? And his brother and his sister there, who are much more successful, are sort of saying, like God's ideas are always like weird, and look at that place, and his father keeps calling it, well, yeah, tell us about your little hobby project Turd. He goes, no, it's called Earth. And it just reminded me, like, this whole bit about Under the Ocean reminded me of that episode there, where God sort of throws together this planet of Earth, and he's like, and they're like, well, come on, think about some of the things you've done on Earth. It's really kind of dumb. He goes, explain to Dad what a cow is, right? And he goes, well, a cow is a dog you can drink from, right? And he says, what's a dog? He goes, well, a dog's like an animal that you can be friends with. And he goes, well, okay, come on. Explain a giraffe, right? And he goes, well, a giraffe is a dog with a leg for a neck. So, anyway, interesting show.
Yeah, the new season, I guess they're going to do like an anthology series thing, kind of like American Horror Story, where every season is a completely different plotline.
Well, I think we have to go back to Blackadder for that one, which is another British show you don't know about. Anyway, go ahead.
I'll take your word for it. I'm not saying that this is like a novelty.
Yeah.
But the Dark Ages series, which is maybe 2 episodes in, uses the same actors, but as far as I can tell, there's no connection at all to the first season.
Oh, really? The same actors, but just different roles?
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
So now they're just sort of individuals, human beings in the medieval times versus being angels and gods in the first season.
Okay. Interesting. So coming back to Blackadder, so you know who Mr. Bean is, right? Rowan Atkinson?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he had a show called Blackadder, which was on BBC. I think they did 4 or 5 series, and each of the series, like, they would do, it started out in the Middle Ages, like real in the Dark Ages, right? And he was sort of a courtier, and he had a little sort of what's the name of the bumpkin that follows him around? He has this little assistant guy, and he has all these misadventures of trying to become more famous as a middling courtier. He wants to be like more famous and get to know the king and all that kind of stuff. And then the next season is the same bunch of characters or same names and everything, but it's kind of like his ancestors, 100 years later, kind of thing, right? And
descended.
Yeah. So then at one point he's in like the king, I think it's in France, because Hugh Laurie, House, he plays this really nutty prince who's one of the gang, and that's pretty funny. And then the last series, I think, was in the trenches of World War I, right, where Atkinson is like a captain, and Hugh Laurie is also in there too, and Baldric is the name of it.
That's right. It's basically like pre-Harry Potter. Every star in England was in it at some point, right? It's Rowan Atkinson, it's Hugh Laurie, it's a bit like Monty Python too, Miranda Richardson, and Robbie Coltrane's in it, and Jim Broadbent's in it, and it's hilarious, is what it is.
They put out a box set of like the 4 series or 5 series a few years ago, and it's probably on the Netflix if you look around for it. But when the guy who plays Baldric he's gone on to do archaeology like documentary shows, and they're really good too. But sort of Rowan Atkinson does these kind of characters. I mean, Mr. Bean sort of became his Batman kind of character character. Like, he kind of got typecast into that role, So I saw him interviewed recently, and he said that he was walking along and somebody said, you look a lot like Mr. Bean.
Yeah. For the record, the guy who played Baldric is Sir Anthony Robinson. Tony Robinson.
Tony Robinson, yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I think he was knighted for his work in archaeology. He does all these really cool shows. Carol watches that one religiously. Mm-hmm. And they get out, they dig through all of England to find, relics and things like that. Yep.
Yeah, he does all the things for like the History Channel. And,
yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's move on to our, since we're not talking about Doctor Who anymore, let's move on to our watch list. I'll go first. So it was interesting. I just stumbled across this one on Twitter, and it was, because we have a Spockcast Twitter account, and it's at Spockcast. For those of you just transporting at home, feel free to follow us. But so every now and then I get notifications about what's going on over there, and this one came up on the feed, and it was a lady named who calls herself Weather Katie on Twitter, and she is a weather girl, and she's done a weather forecast like a Starfleet or a Federation weather forecast, dressed up in like a TNG outfit. So it's kind of interesting because the if you're going to Risa, you'll bring your sunscreen and all that kind of stuff, and it's done like a proper weather forecast. I think she must have done it for just before the premiere of Picard. So it's kind of fun to watch that one. My second pick was, and this is a flashback, and Jonathan and I went and saw Kevin Smith last week roll out the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. What do you call it?
Reboot Roadshow.
Reboot Roadshow, yeah. Unfortunately, Jason Mewes wasn't there, just Kevin Smith, and he after the show he had a question and answer period where 20 people lined up and he answered 4 questions, but before he answered the first question, he probably talked for about 20 minutes alone, right? But so anyways, this is it's fun. There's no visuals, it's just Kevin Smith talking, but he does, like we do, the recaps of the various Star Trek shows that we watch here, Discovery and Picard. He does a recap of the Rise of Skywalker. Now he's a fan of Rise of Skywalker, but he does a sort of play-by-play of the whole movie. Right, he'd seen it like 4 times by the time he did this. This is early December when it probably had just come out, but it's him going on for, I think, probably pretty much an hour. Just talking about this movie, and his commentary is hilarious. Like, first of all, if you ever see him talk live, but he gets emotional at some points during this particular talk. But it's like him just rattling on about the Rise of Skywalker, and he does throw in some of his WTF things because, like we've said about Rise of Skywalker, he doesn't hold a blowtorch to it like Jonathan did a couple of weeks ago, but. But yeah, it is interesting.
To be fair, we should also mention that Kevin is a massive stoner, and he was high when he recorded that, and he was high when he saw the movie. So,
okay, yeah.
That might have skewed his perspective on the film.
Maybe.
I fully intend to get really high next time I watch it too.
Yeah, he might have got emotional and whatever. But yeah. So it's interesting. Just put it on the background and do whatever it is you're doing, wash the dishes or whatever. But it's funny to sort of hear him recap the whole movie.
Yep. And if you do want to continue down that rabbit hole too, so he does a podcast called Batman Beyond with Mark Bernardin, who is a Hollywood scriptwriter as well as a former journalist, and they do this one together where the two of them sit down at this bar in LA, and they basically do pop culture kind of stuff too. When they did that one together in December, where they did their collective share with the crowd of Rise of Skywalker, Mark and I are very much on the same page.
Okay.
I listened to that a few weeks ago, and it made me laugh really loud because it was like hearing an echo of a lot of the same issues I had with it. Mark Bernardin had with the way that movie was put together. So
yeah, it's funny. I listened to a few podcasts at the time because there's a few like sort of I think Incomparable is a podcast group of people, and there's some relatively famous people in our realm of the world like that Jaime and I work in, and they talked about Star Wars. They did a live one in the States, and then an English crew did a live one in England, right? And there was a lot of while they were their brows were furrowed over a lot of things too, but I don't know, maybe they weren't trying to do spoiler stuff, but that may be why. But they all came out like pretty much like not really, like maybe not being super honest about what they really saw. I mean, who's it? John Syracuse, I think. Jaime, I don't know if you've ever heard him talk about Star Wars, but he tends to be very hypercritical of things. In fact, I think he has a podcast called Hypercritical, or a website.
Yeah, that's right. I do think he covers things in probably the most fair way, right?
Yeah.
I think he's pretty pragmatic about his approach to reviewing there.
Yeah. Like he, and he even talks about how he rated this movie compared to and he even compared to how he rated the earlier movies like The Force Awakens or whatever. And he didn't give it. He gave it like 3 stars out of 5. Even as a super fan, right? So yeah, I think he's sort of in there too. Like it wasn't a great movie. It was a good movie, but it wasn't a great movie, right? So. All right, so over to you guys, Jaime.
Yeah, I've got a blog post here by David Garcia, who's from Rex, which I guess is like a real estate services sort of thing. Looks like they have buyers and sellers services, and I guess maybe every once in a while they have to build stuff, probably for staging houses. And the thing that they chose this time is to build the captain's chair from the original Star Trek, Captain Kirk's chair, but with integrated Google Assistant capabilities. So when you flip one of the little magic buttons, it does the kind of sound, and then you can tell it things like what is it? Red alert, yellow alert, beam me up, more power to the engines, and Khan. And
what does it do when you say Khan?
I don't know. He didn't record that part. There's a little video, and it makes me wonder what in the world it does with those commands.
It starts firing at Ricardo Montalban?
Yeah, I don't know there, but I thought that was kind of a timely thing that maybe people might be inspired to try that as well. I'm certainly not handy enough to do this sort of thing, but maybe somebody else might be.
Yeah, cool. All right, my watch list item is the last one. So as you guys may know, one thing that has happened over the last few years since Disney took over the Star Wars universe is that they basically undid all the previous expanded universe stuff that had been done. All the comics, all the TV show, or all the comics and all the books and things that were done about the Star Wars universe had basically been wiped out. None of that happened. But what they've said now is that everything that they put out now, whether it's a book, comic book, a video game, television show, all of it is considered in canon now. So anything that happens in the Star Wars comic is just as valid as anything that happens on screen in the estimation of our Lord and Master Disney's. So, spoilers for those of you who may not want to know what's happening in the new Star Wars comic books, but Marvel Comics publishes Star Wars comics. The first series that they put out was set between Star Wars A New Hope and Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, and it sort of tells a whole storyline that sort of bridges how do they get from Yavin to Hoth. And they ended that series and they've restarted a new one, and the new one is set in the time frame between Empire and Return. And so they kicked this one off with a bang, where it actually solves a mystery that we all came out of Force Awakens with, and it sets up a mystery that is going to make sure that you're going to want to read this comic for a little while. And that is, how did the lightsaber that was chopped off along with Luke's hand end up at Maz Kanata's? So in issue number 2 of this new series, go read it, spoiler alert, we see that when Luke and Darth Vader are having their lightsaber duel out on the edge of Cloud City, and Luke gets his hand chopped off, that as his lightsaber and his hand plummet down, we see someone reach out and catch the lightsaber.
What?
And it is a person whose face is covered and obscured in this issue, but someone was waiting, watched their fight, and caught Luke's lightsaber. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm very excited for the continuing story that they're laying out here. And I think if you're a Star Wars fan, it's probably worth either picking up these issues or waiting until they've collected it in a collected edition, or you can go on to Comixology and read it there if you're so inclined. But I think we're going to get a really interesting story that may be filling in a pretty interesting backstory that all of us have been wondering about the last few years. So that is my watch list.
Interesting. Star Wars number 2. Star Wars Redux.
Yes. Star Wars again.
Alrighty. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, hey, Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you, how will they do that?
I'm on Twitter as @DivWithAHair.
And Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram as @GPK News.
All right. And I am on most of the socials. TIMMITRA. That's Tim Mitra on the socials. Mostly Twitter. And until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. This is Jean-Luc Picard.
Shut up, Wesley.
Sorry, say again. Just the tag. Gotcha. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
And speaking of sci-fi stuff, are we going to go see Birds of Prey?
I don't know. I don't really have any desire to. Is there any reason why we should?
I don't know. It seems like it's getting good initial feedback, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, see, I've always heard two things. One is don't go see a movie in August, and don't go see a movie a week before the Oscars.
Well, it's only 3 days before the Oscars. But,
Well, yeah. The point is, you hide things that people aren't going to care about around the Oscar time, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a risk of this movie winning an Oscar
No?
or being confused for an Oscar picture. I think it's...
Well, who else is in it besides Roby?
That's a good question. I know Mary Elizabeth Winstead's in it too. She was the girl in Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yes, okay.
Ewan McGregor, I believe, is the villain.
He plays Black Mask. He's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Rosie Perez.
Yeah, Rosie Perez is in it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is saying 82% critics and 86% audience.
Yeah, so it's looking good. Let's see. It says Ali Wong's in it. That's unusual.
Mm-hmm.
No movie stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn was by far the best part of that Suicide Squad movie.
That's true.
And I do think it's good. This is also, we should definitely point out, this is directed by a woman too. Kathy Yen did this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I think good to see that getting some opportunities for women filmmakers.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'd be down to watch that.
All right, well, check it out.
I don't know what it's rated.
Check out the skids.
I wonder if the boy wants to see that. He watched Suicide Squad.
Did he? In the theater or?
No, he watched it at home. I think when it came out, he was but a boy.
Better lad.
Playing in 40X, we could see what happens. We've been looking for the opportunity to go see a 40X movie.
Mm-hmm. All right, gotta run.
All right.
Till next time.
Okay, bye.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
The button for this thing.